these are things that we'll be able to like.
Hey everybody, it's Clark from Clark's Cosplays. A few years back I did a video showing how I did my Master Chief build, complete with like strapping, layers, basically did a whole rundown from helmet to boots about how I did it. If you haven't seen that video and you're interested in that, I will put a link to it up here. Over the years I've made some changes to it, figured I'd show everybody what I did, some lessons that I learned from how I did it before. Some upgrades just based on the time that I have available now, some of the resources I have available now, and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically do another version of that video. We're going to talk about how I did my Master Chief. So for the undersuit, nothing's really changed with the undersuit. It's still going to be the spandex top and bottom. Basically, you can use Under Armour. I used the cheaper versions of it. You can find on Amazon. I think it was like maybe $20-ish per piece. Works really well. Keeps me cool throughout the con. Covers all those joint areas and things like that. I've really liked it. For me, it's been very breathable, so it helps keep me cooler when I'm wearing the suit on long cons, long troops. Outside in the Georgia heat, inside in the Georgia heat, at like Dragon Con and things like that. So I'm not going to show or talk too much about that. Nothing's really changed with that. I will put some links down in the description in the comments. If you want to see what I've used, you can go ahead and follow those links there. Now those links are going to be affiliate links through Amazon. No extra cost for y'all. Helps me out with my builds, providing more content and things like that. So if you like what you see, want to try out some of the things that I've used, follow those links. I'll get a little bit of a percentage back from Amazon, not from y'all. You'd just be really helping me out. So with that, with the undersuit, the base layer, nothing has really changed. Similarly, here, I'm still using whatever these little like basketball short slide pants, whatever. I wear them on the outside of the leggings. That way, it helps with the whole dance cup kind of a thing, as well as provide some extra padding. And these pieces here, the little foam bits and things like that, help add to the the whole undersuit thing that they have going on, the Chief and the Spartans have going on. I am working on looking to do an actual silicone undersuit, latex undersuit kind of a deal. Those things are nice because they're really like game accurate. However, they definitely do not breathe. So it's going to be one of those things of the trade-off of how accurate do I want to look versus how comfortable do I want to be. And that's always something that, to think about when you're making your cosplays and things like that. Next, we have the harness. Nothing's really changed with this. I am probably going to go eventually to a less bulky padding because I don't really need all that much padding. As a system, an H harness style thing, or if you run some straps up over the shoulders. The only thing I did add was this little back support thing that came from like one of those baby carrier type bits. I'm old, I'm broken. It helps with the back pain for wearing everything all day. Mostly just standing all day because right now with my current suit build, the codpiece and everything is still plastic. It's still the 3D printed PLA. So I can't sit. That is something I want to change between now and Dragon Con, is having a more flexible codpiece, be it I cast and mold it or print it in TPU maybe, things like that. But that's things I'm going to look at getting into. But still, as you can see, I have suspenders or harness essentially strapped to the belt. The belt has these clips here and here that these attach to the thigh pieces. Though my thigh pieces themselves have physically changed, the attachment system has remained the same between my updated version and my old version from the other video. It still uses the same kind of system of the strapping from the leg to this harness, so that way it keeps it up. That way I'm not reliant on like just friction fitting, because if you do things like that, they will slide down when you're walking, especially if you're doing something like walking in the Dragon Con parade, just walking around cons. General movement, it's going to cause it to slide down. So this system works for me. It's worked for a lot of other people. Nothing has changed in that regard. Just the pieces themselves of this build are upgraded, but the strapping system's the same. I'll still go over it a little bit though for y'all. Next, we have the kind of cheap motocross jacket. It's like, again, maybe $45, probably $50 now on Amazon. I have a link to it. So what I did with it, typically when you get it, it's going to have all these little plastic, protective pieces and stuff like that. I removed all of that stuff off the shoulders and the arms, all of that off the chest. I mainly like it for the spine bit. When you're wearing the chest piece and back piece, it covers over most of this, but you still have like this little piece down here, which is exposed. It's very close to the spine piece that you will see on Chief and a lot of other Spartans. Again, I have bought in the molds and things like that to do the cast silicone to have it actually be accurate. But again, when you do things like that, you lose out on the breathability of certain things in lieu of the game, the accuracy look of it. I've done stuff like that for the front piece. I'll show you that in a second. But for the back, I haven't yet because this still works really well. Another thing I like doing is what I currently have my setup on, and I'll show you. This was clips that were sewed into the jacket. I don't know what it was supposed to actually clip into, but it was one of the things that came with the jacket and how it was set up, similar to kind of how this piece here clips to the back. What I have ended up doing is I use this to clip the top of my bicep shoulder pieces, so that way it holds it up, stops it from sliding down. Previously, I had like snaps and Velcro and things like that. You can kind of see a little bit of the remnant of some of the Velcro that was on there. I had a lot of issues. It was one of those things where it was good in principle, but not in practice. Like the thought behind it seemed good. It made sense, but it's a real pain to try and get the little snap pieces all lined up. It would constantly slip and pop off as I was moving my arms and things like that. And then the only thing keeping the piece in place was basically me just hugging it tight to my chest. And then it just wasn't comfortable. I couldn't really move around. I felt really constrained, and it actually kind of caused a little bit more wear of the paint in spots because I was just constantly holding my arm and holding everything in place. Now for the gloves, nothing's changed. These are still like Zune Luto. I can't remember if they're like paintball gloves or supposed to be like motocross type gloves. Again, I'll have a link to this particular model. The green is good. They also have a black if you want like the black gloves. It has these nice little, rubber knuckle protector bits here that matches up really well with, Spartan gloves, Chief gloves. And then I just took one of the printed hand piece and glued and epoxied it onto the wrist, or the top of the hand piece here. But one of the things that they have done to combat the fact of the black spandex, sleeve, it doesn't come all the way down, and in the beginning, you have that nice little gap between the glove and the sleeve that would usually end up showing your wrist. One of the ways I would end up combating that is I would just end up just using a bunch of duct tape, which worked in a pinch. It's not great for long term. It's not the most comfortable. So what I ended up finding was it's like a hand and arm sleeve. I think it's mostly supposed to be for carpal tunnel, arthritis type stuff. But basically, I found it works. Again, it's spandex, it's breathable, it's stretchy. You put it on. You can bring it all the way up. It's narrow enough that you can put the glove on. And now there's no way that there's ever going to be any skin exposed. So that's always a great way to mitigate that. You can use this in all sorts of builds. It doesn't have to be Spartan, it doesn't have to be this type of armor. All right, with the boots. So again, nothing's really changed too much with how I did the boots between this version and the other version. As you can see, I have a few more layers of sole that I've added on there. As over time, basically the sole pattern here, this was a floor mat. As this wears down from walking around, you can usually get a few cons out of it, depending on how much movement you do. It kind of loses its, the grip. Basically what happens to your normal shoes just faster because it's just foam. Usually what I'll do is, smooth it out a little bit. Basically set this down on the sheet, trace out a new sole, essentially, cut it out. I usually do a mixture of the like barge cement, contact cement type stuff, and some E6000. And then as you can see here, this is black colored hot glue from Surebonder, I believe is what it is. I'll use that to kind of sandwich fill in the edges there. I just essentially keep adding to it. It provides more of a lift as well as just more cushion. And so, what I did with the shoe is basically built a sole out of EVA foam around the boot, attached it to the boot. So the boot is currently E6000 epoxied to the interior sole of the EVA, and then glued with E6000 and hot glue around here. So the plastic of the armor is glued onto the sole, as is the boot is glued onto the sole. But one of the things that I did end up doing also is, you can't really see it, and that's I can't really show you exactly how I did it. I'll try and explain the best I can just with how this is set up. But what I ended up doing is a EVA foam heel. So between the heel that gives kind of like high-heeled shoes and the added layers of EVA foam on the sole, plus the fact that it's just a boot, so the boot itself usually gives you a little bit more. That's what brings it up to the Master Chief height. I'm already a tall person, so this just brings it all the way up there. So next, we come to the thigh piece. This is the right thigh. So what I ended up doing with this one is, because I was able to upgrade it, I have a bigger printer. So if you recall, the previous version, this was like 4 pieces that I had to glue together, and that ran into some issues over time as the tension was basically pulling the pieces apart. So with those, I had to reinforce them, but with this is all one print. It helps with the strength and rigidity, as well as just appearance, because you don't have all those other filler lines that you have to smooth over and things like that. So what I did here is, on the inside, this is all EVA foam that I stacked up on top of itself to mimic how the legs are on the inside of the thighs. Provides with more flexibility and more comfort. It was a lot easier to do that way. And as you can see here, as I mentioned with the belt, this clips on to the belt and holds up the thigh piece. And then if you see in here, this clip there and clip there attaches to here on the shin. So on the left and the right of the knee, they're black elastic. So it's black plastic on your black legging or whatever. So it doesn't pop and show. With how the clips are, these have a little bit of swivel to them. So they will swivel along with the joint of your knee, as well as just the elastic and bungee, giving you the added ability to walk around, flex, and things like that. So what I did here is I used upholstery foam. These are basically friction fit onto the shin, onto your leg. And by doing that, the way I have it set up, I kind of have one angle at like one at the 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and the one back here at the 6 o'clock. That kind of stops it from shifting this way. It keeps it in place. The friction stops it from sliding up and down too much. But with it being the foam, it's still comfortable. And with it being in the shin, it can't go down any lower really because of the boot. The top of the ankle, it can't go up any higher because of the legs. You don't have to worry too much about keeping it without moving around. So the friction fit mixed with the straps up here hold it in place. Now for the ab wrap, the previous version, it was EVA foam that I coated in like a vinyl carbon fiber appearance for like your car, which worked out well for what it was. This is a little more accurate. This is a silicone rubber cast. I did not make this one. I bought this from somebody off of Etsy. I don't recall off the top of my head. I'll link their name below. This initially was one continuous wrap. However, the way he had it set up, it was basically a medium large or a large extra large. This was the medium large that he had, and with how I had everything set up, it was still a little like loose and baggy. So what I ended up doing was basically trimming it out, following the contours of how this was, so that I would have it on the front. And as I said before, earlier, the back piece I wasn't too worried about because it had the spine, like that spine appearance from the motocross jacket. But we have this here, the top of the armor, the chest armor, covers this upper part, and the codpiece covers, the bottom part. So it really just holds it in place. I have a little piece of Velcro in here to attach to the motorcycle jacket to hold that part in place. And then I did the magnet method on the chest of the motocross jacket. What I ended up doing here is, instead of using the standard purse magnet that it came with, I bought a heavier duty one. These magnets are a lot stronger, but still not as good as just other attachment options, at least for this. Works out for the most part. If I move around too much, sometimes it can pop, but luckily, having the cod piece covering the bottom and the chest piece covering the top, it holds most of the edges together. So here's the little Velcro spot here where I had this piece attached to, and kind of line it up, put it on there. And then, as you can see here, there's little purse clips. At the edges. So basically holds it in place here. And then you have the cod piece. Again, this is new and updated. I believe the old one was like multiple pieces that was held together with like nylon strips glued in to kind of give it a little bit more flexibility, but you still have those unseemly line splits in here. This is all one piece for the front, which looks really great. However, it's not always that flexible. So this will sit over the bottom here, and then the chest will cover up over the top. Since the past few troops in this, one of the things I've ended up doing is basically lining up and taping the bottom of the belly wrap to the cod piece here. And that has helped keep it in place a little bit, because one of the issues I found is just through flexing and moving around, sometimes this bottom piece here will slide up. I want to try and do a attachment method that's a little bit more permanent, where I can maybe like loop it and attach it to something here. My only concern is putting holes and stuff in the silicone rubber and having it start to tear, and I don't want it to tear. And as I mentioned before, so this little clip up here is what this clip here on the bicep will plug into. This part here is more of a friction fit. I don't have any real padding in there. It's just me. That's clipped up there. That's clipped up there, so I can move around. Have that kind of freedom of movement. It's not going to slide down any farther because that's holding it on up there. With how this is, when I have the chest piece on, the chest and back covers up most of that, so you don't even really see it at all. So with the cod piece, if you recall with the other one, the butt piece was basically held on with little magnets on the inside that clipped to the shorts that I would be wearing underneath, and had straps and buckles that held the back piece to the front pieces. This is all one piece on the front, all one piece on the back. These were the Galactic Armories files, and how they have theirs come together is they would kind of wedge together here and attach. What I ended up doing with mine is it'll come together like that. It'll come together, but what I did here is, as you can see, I put some Velcro on one side and on the other piece, and basically just have one Velcro, of the opposite side strap that goes across, so that once it gets clicked together, I just put that over the top and holds it in place. So that way it's more than just a little friction fit. You have that added Velcro holding it on there. So that's what I've done with mine. Now, as I mentioned earlier, what I'd like to do is cast this out of rubber or try printing it in, TPU or the foaming TPU or something like that to at least give me more flexibility. So that way I can sit down. So with how this is all one solid piece. I can't really bend too far forward. I can't sit down or crouch down too much with it. More so than how I would think like the knees and legs would be an issue. And this is solid plastic. This is my butt pad. I cannot sit down on this. If I were to sit down on this, there's a high probability that I will break this, and I don't want to do that. So I have looked into doing some rubber casting, Offer 3D, Vulture Productions. They do a lot of rubber cast stuff. They have rubber cast ODSTs, which are awesome. They're working on going into some Spartan stuff like that. I think some other folks might be looking into doing casting of their suits, as well as just the rubber TPU, flexible TPU that you can print with is becoming more and more available. Initially, the issue that I ran into it or would have with it is there's no real good way to finish it, sand it down, filler primer it, do all that stuff. But now they're coming out with more things that you can do stuff like that with it. Not quite the same way, but you get the same result. So, printing with TPU for these types of things is becoming a lot more viable these days. Now for the arms, so this is the bicep piece. On the previous version, this was all one piece. The bicep and shoulder, upper bicep was all one piece. How I used to have this set up was it'd be held up there with, snaps or Velcro. It was really annoying to try and get everything to line up, and half the time it wouldn't always stay. Again, it was one of those things where it was good in principle, but not in practice. And so what I ended up doing with this is I printed the all-in-one piece for the bicep, and it goes on with friction. I don't have any other padding or anything like that. It's just, for me, it goes on with friction of the arm, held up in place. And then on the undersuit jacket, I had those little clip spots, the little buckles. So this just buckles in there and holds it up top. So that helps hold it up, helps keep the shoulder in place, but also provides flexibility and movement. I have the shoulder attached with just nylon webbing that's been glued in there. So again, that gives it the ability to flex and move around without coming apart. It's been a lot easier and better for getting positions and stuff like that for movement, for photo shoots and things like that, interactions with the public. Having that has provided a lot more freedom of movement compared with the previous version. I recommend doing stuff like that for any other type of armor bits or movement pieces that requires that kind of hinge piece. Again, this is one of those instances of in game it doesn't matter because the pieces clip into each other, but this is reality, so I can't clip this into the back piece. And then for the forearm, again, previous version had little purse clips or Velcro. It was really annoying to try and get it to come connect. So what I did with this, really simple, just upholstery foam and a friction fit. So the way I have it sized is my hand can fit through it, comes up there, fits right in the spot there. I have foam on one side, down here, foam up here. It's comfortable. It allows it to move around, but not so much that it becomes an issue. All right, so now we come to the back piece. If you can remember on the previous version, this was all 4 pieces put into one. I have a larger build plate with this one, so this was only split in 2. So it's a lot stronger, a lot better. There's a lot more detail pieces that are there. Didn't require as much finishing work, so didn't have to fill in all the other lines. In here, this all is one piece. On the previous version, I had this piece up here was a little bit more flexible, I believe. This piece down here was a little more flexible. It was held together with clips. What I did here is I have some upholstery foam up here, up top. Helps with the hard plastic pieces resting on my shoulders. Oops. Hard plastic pieces resting on my shoulders. What I did here is I put, those little round clips again. If you can tell, I love using these round clips. They're really convenient because you have a little push button up top here to get them to pop. You don't have to like pinch like most of the other clips. It provides a little bit more like swivel, little movement. And I have that up there. Down here at the bottom, elastic, similar push top clip, but it doesn't swivel, but it's skinnier. It's easier to fit in some of these spots here. I don't care so much about it having too much swivel down at this point as I do up here. And then here is a chest piece. So what I did on this is just with some EVA foam, kind of mimic the little neck piece that is up there, the little gasket. I just use EVA foam. That also helps with some of these hard points of the plastic from digging into my shoulder blades. I have the opposite clips here, and opposite clips down here and there. The bottom sits on top of the ab wrap. This top part here will be tucked in underneath the back piece, and then the back piece straps will come down and clip into here. So this just sits in over the top. Down here I have the clips. Up top I have the clips. So I have this here. I usually we'll try and do the bottom clips first, and then the top part here. This comes down here, clips in. I use elastic strips for up here, and I usually have it tucked in. Pretty tight, so that way it keeps a lot more tension on it to hold these pieces together. A lot of times you will have to tuck that neck foam piece down in there, but then here's how it looks. So this is how it's here. This fills in the gaps there. I'll wear a neck gaiter. Again, nothing's changed from the neck gaiter from the previous version. I have that on, and then the helmet goes on top of that. But as you can see here, by having the tension, it pulls it in tight together. I have it set up so that this is basically at where the clip points are. So it kind of blends in with where it is on the armor in reality with how it is in practicality. It's updated and actually better scaled to me. The first version was the Halo 3 style, as well as being multiple pieces. This is all one solid piece and was not quite scaled properly. So not a big deal, still looked great. It was one of those things where probably I was one of the main people that would notice the huge difference of the scaling, but that also goes to show the importance of getting your files scaled to you, not just to however it was when you got it. And again, one of the great things about how these little buckles are is I can fit my thumb in here because it stretches out a little bit. It's just a push down on the top, so you just push the button down, it snaps back in there, and boom, it's off. Come over this side, same thing, bam, comes right off. Real simple, real convenient. Now to the helmet, the face of the Master Chief. So nothing has really changed either with this. This is still the Jazzwares helmet that you can get. Repainted, of course. The green that they had on there was not correct, in my opinion, as well as the battle scarring, the wear damage, and things like that just did not look right. So this is repainted, repainted to match the suit, added little scuffs, wears, and tears, and things like that. Honestly, this is such a good bang for your buck for these types of things. For me, it fits my head just fine, perfectly. Way better than like the old Disguise ones from a few years back. Inside, as you can see, you have the nice little helmet liner. I can't remember if I added the spring piece to this one or not, or if it came with it. I also have, USB fan up at the forehead, USB fan here, USB fan there, all pointing towards, your face. And they all run off of battery packs. They'll step up in here. For me, there's plenty of space inside the helmet to fit all these things. Previously, I've even tried wearing a Bluetooth microphone with a little speaker box. Some people like having those little speaker box microphone things. For me, I don't see as much of a benefit for it. The main issue I have with this is not necessarily people hearing me, it's I can't hear you. I've seen some people have done things where they will basically take the shooting earmuffs that have the amplification of the ambient sounds and things like that. They'll wire that into their rig. I might look into doing something like that at some point. That's not as high of a priority for me as other things are. Quality of life improvement, number one for this is going to be a flexible codpiece so I can sit down. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, leave a like on the video. If you want to see more like this, subscribe, and let me know if there's anything you want to see on the next video, if you have any other questions about this build, or just in general, different things you can do.